Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let 'em have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. Today is a very unique day, always when I have my New York friends on the show. I am talking to Jerry Cahn, who's an unlimited leadership coach. I even love that you put that down when I asked what type of coach you are, unlimited. We're going to talk about that. You are a social psychologist, personality psychologist, and you have a really unique skill set, also being an attorney, entrepreneur, professor, and enabling you to bring out the best in others, not just themselves as a person, but also the systems in which they operate and live the best story of their life to get rid of limiting beliefs and so much more. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to share whatever insights I can.
All right. Well, let's kick it off. First of all, just quick backstory. I did speak to Jerry's Long Island CE group recently with Vistage. So shout out to those people there. And, you know, you said, I asked you what makes a great Vistage speaker. You said vision, inspiration, and execution. That's why I got you on the show, because our first conversation really intrigued me in the way that you go about your execution with your people. So I'm going to start there and say, if coaching was a color, what color would it be?
Never thought about it in terms of color. I think it would be kind of a maroon red.
Tell me more.
The reason for that is it grabs you. Red is a color that grabs your attention. It says, wow, this is important. You have to pay attention to it. A bright red is a stop, like a stop sign. But this is not a stop sign. This is a sign of saying, hey, there's something good coming down the pike. And so it has its extra texture, kind of the maroon in sense of the color for me. And so I see it as something that's opening up your eyes to what else can I do in my own life and in the lives of other people, and how do I get in there to do it? Maybe the answer is it's also muddy, because we've got to get down in the mud and do it.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, tapping into the heart space, you know, the red is always, when you see a love heart, you see red, right? So getting into the heart of what's important to people and asking those why questions, why is it that you want to do what you want to do? So let's talk about your background. I want to know, like, take me back, Jerry, to you as a child. What was 5-year-old Jerry like?
I have no idea. Serious. I'm a big believer in we have a choice. We can spend a lot of our time focusing on the past. Remember, I'm a psychologist, so Freud said, let's go to your past. And Jung said, let's go back to your ancestors and your ancestors, etc. Or you can go to the future, which is what positive psychology is doing right now. It's saying, what can I do in the future that's going to make a difference? And so a long time ago, when I was a teenager and I turned my whole life around on one basic idea, basically, I focus on futures. And so I live in the future. I focus on the future. I enjoy the present to the extent that I can. But I also remember it's like water. It keeps traveling. It's fluid. It moves. So I never get too attached to something right there now. You know, focus on where do we all go together. So we all get in a boat and we can go around the world. We get on a rocket ship, go to space, wherever we're going. But it's not the rocket. It's the ability to move forward. And so I'm very much perspection is really my approach to the future of the world. So one of the ironies is I had an illness when I was a kid, and we couldn't figure it out physically. So I saw a therapist, and he said, tell me your earliest earliest memory. And I said, I can tell you what my parents told me, but I don't think I can remember anything before 13. And so I don't remember what it was like at 5. I just don't know. I don't remember. I don't care, because I was a very different me. I made a decision somewhere in my teens, for reasons that won't go into here right now, that my role in this world is to make a difference in people's lives by changing systems, by helping people overcome the barriers to growth, and being able to teach them the skills of how to take it forward for themselves and for other people. And so if I don't make this world a better place, I fail. And so that's my single biggest purpose in my life. And so everything I do is focused on how does it make the world a better place. And so what I did at 5 is really relevant.
Well, let's go there next because, off air you were talking about what's one concept that's really top of mind right now. And in your title, Unlimited Leadership Coach, you have this concept of a window of 200 years in terms of us looking at our life through that lens cap. Now, I just want to make a shout out to my granddad who lived to 100, and him and I were born on the same day. So maybe I've got some good genes going on there, but he was an incredible man. And of course, I always asked him, what's the secret to living to 100, right? And he came from that generation where it was all about, well, still make sure you eat full fat butter and full cream milk, all the old school, and save your money. He'd always jingle his pennies in his pocket. So shout out to Dennis Reed, one of the kindest men in my life. So love you, Granddad. And your concept of this 200 years. Let's talk to me about what the concept is first.
So this goes to the question of why we have so many limiting beliefs that we've inherited, and I don't mean it from a biological point of view, but socially, we've inherited them, we've adopted them. Where does that come from? So if today's people, and as you know, Age Brilliantly is all about maximizing our opportunities to lead, and again, we have to be leaders of this, 100-year life, and think of that as our standard. So it's like getting on a marathon. I'm going to go 26.2 miles. I'm not just running for the hell of it. It's no default. That's my goal. I want to make it through 26.2. At least 100 years we can all live now, and we now know children born today are living to 105 in terms of just with their capabilities. So if you take that, I ask myself the question, what impact do we have in the world? So the window is about impact. Well, the first 50 years, let's assume you're 50. First 50 years of your life, you grew up with your parents, the social group that they created for you, the places they created for you, etc. And they determined much of your thought process until you changed it on your own, which is why that's where I focus on how can we change it and move forward. And you'll do that for your next 50 years, assuming you live to 100. But you have to understand your parents came also from 50 years before that. So if you think of it as four sets of 50, what you're really saying is we grow up in a world created by our grandparents and their generation. And then our parents took it and modified it a little bit in their own way to do it. And then we followed through until we're ready to say at any age, could be 10, could be 16, it could be 75, we're going to change. We don't want to follow those rules anymore. And that's what makes them limiting beliefs, because we realize they're not helping me for tomorrow's future that I want to grow into. And then we change them as we work forward. And then from there, what we do is we take a look at what impact we're going to have on other people. And so the analogy I use all the time is imagine it's 1900 and you're building a hotel and someone's put out a rule in your city that says we have to have a trough in front of the hotel. So when you come with a horse, you can tie the horse to it and the horse doesn't have to starve and be in the heat without any water. Then when we first build hotels that are living in a world of cars, someone had to go back and say, but wait a minute, why do I have to build this stupid trough if I have cars on the road? A limiting belief. And so finally, sometimes it goes quickly, usually it doesn't, it takes forever for us to get rid of it. And if you're going to do that, then you have to ask the second question, well, where am I going? And so as I explained to my children when I invented Age Brilliantly as a concept and as a potential global company of helping people plan for their futures or where they're going, I said, understand something. We came from a world where they were walking, learning how to use animals, figuring out how to put wheels next to that, so you came on a horse and buggy. And we're now living in a world where we have cars, and that's beginning to change, because what we're about to have is Ubers who pick you up instead of having to go to a corner and pick up a taxi. And in about a year or two, you have to remember, we won't have anybody in that car. It is going to be a robo-taxi, right? So We grew up in a world of horses and we're ending up in a world of robo-taxis. Okay? Within this 200-year window. Go farther out, it'll be all different. Maybe it'll be flying cars, whatever the case may be. So we need to look at where we're going and prepare for that. And the whole point of Age Brilliantly is nobody prepares for their future. We try to live in the present very often. That's the whole point of meditation. And as people looking at your present and maximizing it, except that present is fluid. It's like when you jump into the water of a river, you're there, but within seconds, that's a different set of water where you are. It keeps moving. And we need to see life not as static, but fluid. So there are many people who think of it as you have childhood and you have adolescence. And then you have a period of time where you're going to be an early adult. And then you have midlife, which used to be around 45 to 50. And now when you listen to people who think that stage of life called midlife exists, it's 35 to 75, which is not makes no logical sense, right? Because it can't be that long. We don't look at any stages. A personal belief is that when people give labels to other people, they don't usually do it for a positive reason. They do it for a negative reason, because I'm different than them in some way. And therefore, that's where we get our prejudices, which are all limiting beliefs. And so the way to look at it is we're going to be fluid. Life is fluid. So you could be 27 and have a child. You could be 87 and have a child. And while people go, well, that's terrible, I'd say, why? And they go, well, he's older. I said, maybe he's fit, maybe he's bright, maybe he loves kids, maybe he wants to do everything. Why do you make that assumption? And they said, just only one thing you need to know. When the kid's 3 years old, that 27-year-old is 30 and the 87-year-old is 90. And you know where they met? They met at the kindergarten, at the daycare center where they sent their kids. And they're going to be best friends. And that's the world we can live in if we give ourselves those opportunities. And that's why you see the pictures behind me of people who are Age Brilliantly type representatives, because at any age, you can start thinking about that 200-year window. What impact do I want to have long-term? What am I going to live in? How do I prepare? How do I maximize the opportunity to have a great life?
I'm pausing for effect because obviously you didn't know this, but I'm turning 50 this year.
Well, congratulations. You're
Thank you.
Center in that period of 200.
And I'm not labeling it. And I'm actually almost doing birthday year. I am hiking up the west coast of Portugal. And each day I've given myself questions, reflective questions. The first two are about the past, the third one's about the present, and the next two are about the future. So I'm wondering if you could provide some practical tools, questions. What are things that you love as it relates? I'm super fascinated about the future, about legacy questions, or like, how do you unpack and help people really think about and prepare for the future?
Great question. So part of what Age Brilliantly is doing is building new tools that people can use because they run out there. So we have something, code names called Imagination Land. It's a special workshop we're offering that has a slightly different name, but it's a basic way to think about it. And it's kind of like, take a look at your future and think out what you could do. Now, the future is fluid, but still there will be different phases. So, for example, if you're single at 23 and you decided you wanted to get married and have a child, traditional kind of norm, fine, follow it. You have that child. You're now, for the first time, really making that decision to be something other than the adolescent you've been and becoming a young adult. Okay, so we have 5 stages. We think of it that way in terms of how you fluidly move there. You're a young adult, and now you're moving into that. Now you can do anything you want at any rate you want once you're starting to make that movement. So you can decide if you're going to get, and life is like that today. You may not have one marriage. You might have 6. You will not have one career or 2 careers. You could have 10. Everything is going to change on a constant basis. You have to think through, what are the things that I would want? And the way to do that is to actually use what we call the life path. what you do is you see yourself on a kind of bending road from where you are now, in your case 50, and you're going to live, I'm sorry about that, but if you've got a gene to 100, so let's make it 110 by the time, remember, that's 60 years from now, right? So anything can happen, and that's the way to look at it. Not, oh my gosh, we don't have a cure for Alzheimer's yet. True statement. But that doesn't mean if you're 27 and you've got, and we actually had someone on H Brilliant who asked this question. I found out from my mother that I have a gene that if it expresses itself means I'm going to have an earlier onset of Alzheimer's. Should I worry? Should I even get up in the morning, and what should we do? And the person who responded did it very nicely in saying, we are beginning to do research that's correct in figuring out whether we could cure it, prevent it, mitigate it, whatever the case may be. And since we know it generally takes place at a longer period of time, the odds are you will maybe not get it, or not get it in the way you're envisioning right now. And so the result is, why worry about it now? Go out and have a great life and just study the research. And that's the whole point. That's the mission. Watch what's happening. Get involved with clinical trials or whatever the case may be. But 60 years from now is a whole different world. And you need to start planning for that. And so I think that's really the key, is to look. So what we do is we say, if you were here now at 23 and you've just gotten married, and or 25, whatever it was, and you have your child, what do you think the next 75 years of your life are? And they're not going to be, as people think, I'm going to retire and this is the one thing I'm going to do. No, you're going to keep changing, just like you change your first 10 years of your life. It keeps changing. So think of it that way. What are the things? So, for example, imagine you are a young person and you love medicine. And so as a kid, somebody teaches you about being a candy striper in a hospital. So you go in there and you help people out by providing them with candy and spending time with the kids and just entertaining older people who might be in beds, and you're doing that. And as you grow, you realize, what I could do is get involved with medicine. And I could make a difference in these people's worlds. And if I had now 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life to do that, wow, look at all the different things I'm going to learn in a world that I don't even know the questions to ask, because 20 years from now, the rate of science is going to be in a completely different place. And where am I going to go? You're going to change. And so you may have, as I said, 10 careers, because you might have started off becoming, let's say, a nurse, and then decide to become a doctor, and then become a specialist. And the next thing you know is you're a hospital administrator, because you can make a bigger difference in the funding mechanism to help a lot of the people in your community. And then the next thing you know is maybe you're going to be the head of health and human services in the country, right? And then from there, who knows what you're going to do? Maybe you're going to work on specialty AI that's going to figure out different spots on different scans and how to be able to figure out whether they make a difference or not. So the key is, you look at that 75 years as full of excitement and just go through, I could do any of the things I just laid out for you. And so at the end, let's assume 100, I've reached this point where I've had the following many, many ways of having an impact on a person. Now, once you've done that rough thing, you work backwards. Now, what do I have to do to get there and do it well? So the life path process means having a flexible idea where you might want to go, working backwards to see what actually works. And then with our app that we're going to be offering, people are going to be actually map how they're proceeding along that map over time and change it. And someone asked me recently in another one, so how close do you think they're going to get? I said, just like Mike Tyson said, it's not about the plan that makes a difference, because the plan is gone the minute that other guy hits you in the face. What it's about is the planning, thinking, what would I have to know, learn, do, care about, make a difference in to get to a better place in the next step. And so it'll keep changing. And how it'll change, that's the big data thing that we're aiming to get to, because we'll find that out over watching people's lives. Last point on that is, and that's what I think is so great about technology, is in the 1930s, Harvard got a grant to do something that's today called the Harvard Longevity Study. Over 80-something years, they've been tracking groups of people. John F. Kennedy was in the first cohort. And finding how they do it, and the question was, what leads to greater health and greater longevity? And what they discovered is it's relationships. It's the ability to relate to other people that you can count on and make a difference in your life. And the history of it, and there's 4 books out. Robert Waldinger has a great one called The Good Life. This is the most recent one of him, but they're all great ways of understanding it. The point is, nobody knew what that 80 years is going to be like. And so a lot of these people obviously aren't even alive. It's their children and the grandchildren. But the ability to know that stuff is great. Now, they have to spend millions of dollars doing the research. Imagine what we could do if we have an LLM pulling it together.
So if I researched the people that you work with today, what would they say about you as a coach?
You're frozen.
Oh,
Froze. Oh, it's okay. What would they say about me as a coach? So Forbes recently asked, because I'm on one of their councils, to define what is executive coaching. And for whatever reason, they picked my answer as the beginning. And I define it slightly differently than most people. Coaching is helping people come to grips with where they are and where they want to be. But a coach has to help them see the world they can't yet see and has to open that exposure. So to me, it's a combination of mentoring and coaching. What you're doing is you're laying out, as I am with you right now, the alternative universes in front of you and saying, let one of them happen, see what happens, and take it where you want to go. And then helping them when they say, I can't do something, to find why they think they can't. Because those are limiting beliefs. There are no limits that we know of. And when they think they can, to recognize that, and I think I said this to you in our meeting, a CEO for me is a chief experimental officer. We are all the chief experimental officers of our lives. That's the fascinating part. No 2 people. I have identical twin sons, as an example. And when for the first couple of months and years, we couldn't tell the difference between them. We did, but you really couldn't. But as they've grown, they change because everyone goes through slightly different things. And so that's the opportunity that really we're trying to create for them. So what I try to do is give them a sense of you have an unlimited capability of what you can do. And in that 200-year window, which is longer, right? Think about it. It's thousands of years depending on what you're doing. Plato and Aristotle and Socrates are infecting us now, and they're not even alive. But the point is, that's the impact we're having. So it's unlimited life. It's unlimited legacy. And it only comes if you're also an unlimited leader. You realize that at every given moment, you lead other people by being a great role model, by making a difference in their lives, because they can look to you for inspiration in some way. And for me, that's been a big part of my life. I've run youth groups. I've run now something called mentoring internships. We've had over 650 interns. And it's an opportunity for them to see the world a different way, roll up their sleeves, and figure out what they're going to be able to do and do it and make a difference in their world. And if you have unlimited life, leadership, and legacy, what more could you ask for in life?
okay. So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. I do come across some leaders, some CEOs who say, okay, it's all good and well, Jerry, on the surface, all these things you're talking about, all these concepts are great, but I really don't like people and I don't really care about relationships and I just want to make money and the people side of it, not really interested. What would you say to that person that comes, that has this map of the world? Where would you go with that person?
So that obviously is in the 1800s, very early 1900s, kind of command and control, hierarchical, old industrial point of view. And what I have to say is, get real. That's my first comment. Get real. Take a look. We are all, like it or not, standing on the shoulders of somebody else. Every great innovator, whether it's Einstein or as a scientist or an innovator who's building things like Musk is doing right now, all of them admit that they are a function of all the things they've learned from other people and will interact with those people. So it's a nice fantasy to think you're an entrepreneur and you create your company by yourself and you're the only leader, just not true. Okay? It's like a drop of water in that river that keeps moving, just a drop, but the point is there's a drop that's moving with every other piece of the water that's going. So the first answer is understand that the system has to have an impact on you for lots of reasons, but the biggest answer is it's a system. It's exactly what it's supposed to be doing, and that's it. So it's not going to work that way. No leader, by definition of a leader, by the way, that means there's a follower, right?
Yep.
Who's
100%.
listening and learning. So when you say, I don't care about people, well, you wouldn't be a leader to have a follower because that's the second person already. Okay?
Yep.
That's why I'm saying it's a movement process. The good news is most people aren't thinking that way. I'll tell you where the big difference comes. And it's the biggest issue with we have something called Project Thrive, how the new companies, corporations are going to be. It's mainly aimed at corporations, the kind of ones I work with. We're taking a look at what is going to happen when three things are happening. You have now new worker expectations because of COVID. The world of work-life balance ended because people realize they want to be a person. They want to be in control of their life. As the saying usually goes, I want to bring my whole self to work, but I also want to bring my whole self home. And so what happens now is we look at it completely different, and all the advanced people are beginning to think that way. SHRM does this in terms of it. It's called work-life integration. It's how you integrate within the 24 hours of a day what you want to do. As long as you accomplish all the things you want to with your children, with your parents, with the jobs, with your clients, with your investors, whatever it is, you can control where that is. And that's time mastery. It's one of the 8 essentials that we talk about of critical life. Holistic, which is our view of this, is you put all of these things, career, passion, purpose, time mastery. Go to agebrilliantly.org and you'll see what they are. And you'll see it's a circle because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And we have to put those sum of the parts together for people. And I think that's where the difference is going to come in. So you got to look at it. If you're building a company, there are other people. And you cannot be a bottleneck that's going to hold people back. And you can't know it all. And we change. And we will lose some of our edge, as I call it, in our life. And you have to understand that. So you have it at 50. You may even have it at 150. And Emma, I'm hoping so, because then you and I will stay good friends there. But it'll take a while.
Absolutely. All right. Leadership is fellowship. So good, Jerry. So good. In 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
Well, you asked me what they do, and I said it's vision, inspiration,
And execution. Yeah, that was what makes a great Vistage speaker. I'm just wondering what makes a great coach.
Makes a great coach.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because I think it's the commonality of all. It's a great person. It's a great parent. It's a great everything. Because and obviously I've thought it through. First, you have to have a vision of where each person is and where you want to see the world going. It makes a real difference. If you don't have a vision, you're not going to be there tomorrow. There is no future without vision. Remember, the definition of a vision when it comes to a business is what do you want to see in the headline 25 years from now in the New York Times for your company. It's a vision. It's where you're going. You have to have that. And that's why it's so important to understand in the 200 window, wherever you are, there is up to 100 years in front of you that you can have a direct impact on. And then it could be thousands of years after that, it's going to change it. I mean, think of the ability to fly now, changing everything we're doing. So vision is what drives us to get up in the morning. I have a son who calls me every Sunday, and his first comment for a long period of time, he's actually stopped it now because I do what I'm about to do, is talk about it. He says, Dad, what excites you for this week? What excites you for today? Well, think about it. Isn't that a great standard to get up every morning and say, I'm excited to do X? That's vision. Okay. The second part is inspiration. The answer is we have to remember we are part of the whole, and what we have to do is affect the whole. So it's our behavior. It's being ethical. It's being caring. It's being concerning. All of those things are important because we're affecting other people who are all part of that process. So it's a kind of a herd mentality of everybody listening to each other to be the best that they can be. So the inspiration is an important part. And I learned that when I used to do youth groups, realizing people would ask me how I think and how I do it. You're doing that right now. Every answer I give is going to inspire, hopefully, somebody. And if I've done that, I have a bigger impact, going back to my vision. And the final part is execution. That's the hard part very often because we don't know what to do. I don't know what my world is going to really look like right after I start taking robocars. I keep wondering, what will that next world look like? I have to sit, I have to plan. All that work that I'm doing at Age Brilliantly to build this platform so that people can use it for the next, who knows, hundreds of years, it's execution. It's doing it. It's the standard of excellence. It's the brilliance of thinking it through, hence the name Age Brilliantly. It's the hard work and it's involving other people so you get a collective wisdom that you can never do by yourself.
The only way I know how to be successful in my entire life is by executing on actions. That's like for me, that's the only way. It's like doing this podcast. I mean, I'm executing on the fact that I'd love to have you on the show. Boom, 2 weeks later, you're on the show, right? That's execution, and it's you taking action and me taking action to find this commonality. And yeah, so good, Jerry. All right. I have a definition of confidence that equals time plus experience. And you are definitely someone who I look up to, right? You're a role model for so many, including myself. And I want to know, and I always say this to others, if I could short circuit your experience on one thing, like that you could gift me of your life experience so that I can layer it to my life toolkit to be more confident in the world, what would that be?
What I love about you, you ask the same tough questions of me that I have to ask of me, so I appreciate that. So I have a phrase, and I think maybe that's the answer. Where does confidence come from? You said time plus experience. I'm going to give it a different way of looking at it. It comes from competence. Did I use the time well? Did
Yep.
my experience one of where I did good things in a good way to have a good impact? Okay. So I've had for years, I remember I trained people to win big deals as part of what I do through presentation excellence. And I've always said, if you want to get people to be confident in giving you the money, giving you the support, buying your idea, whatever it might be, you got to be competent. They have to believe in you. And it comes from a trust that comes from watching you behave and what you do. And so I think competence generates confidence that other people have in you. And that's what you and I execute, because that's the competence.
Love it. And you can only get competent by being a lifelong learner. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100%.
Yeah.
And
But
continuous improvement is the standard. You know, a lot
yeah.
of people talk about learning, and I think it's a great thing. But when I started my Vistage group and we sat down, what's the first value? And they all looked at me and said, well, what would you say the first one is? I said, well, I'll tell you what the one I followed all my life. Continuous improvement. If I'm not better tomorrow than I was today, why am I around? I need to feel I'm going to try to be better. Doesn't mean I'll succeed, but I'm going to try my best to do that. And by
Yeah.
doing that alone, I inspire. And so that way you can do it. But the answer is yes. Lifelong learning, some people think is a great thing. We've been doing it since the day we're born. No, the problem with aging as a concept is people think it's negative. Oh my God, I'm going to age. It's a bad thing. The minute you're born, the very minute you're born, you're coming out of the womb, what's the very first thing you do? You scream, oh my God, they put me into this world. You learn you can scream. At some level, you've already learned something, and you just were born. And you got the 100 years to do that over and over and over again. And that's what we don't do enough of. Appreciate each person's ability to grow and to work with other people to grow. We spend too much time on what I call limiting beliefs because we're trying to harvest some positive feelings that are very short term as opposed to long term ones by building.
What's the number one limiting belief that holds people back?
That whatever they do now is the way it should be and not the way it is, but could be more. And it's across the board in everything, whether it's love, whether it's teaching, whether it's working. You know, people will say, and they use the phrase correctly, I'm happy. I'm okay. I have a joke, which all the people who work with me know, is every time I go out to get another cup of coffee or tea or something like that, I'll say, okay, who wants arsenic, old lace, coffee, tea? Tell me what you're looking for. And the answer usually is, I'm okay. Question is, could we be more than okay? We can. But we have to set that as the vision and then ask the question how. And so what I do is I create with that a norm. And now everybody asks everybody else, can I get something for somebody else? Why not? We're out there. Let's just help each other. So I think that's the single biggest limiting thing, is that okay is okay. Okay is not enough. We deserve more. We are capable of more. And that's why we called it Age Brilliantly. I had a previous company called Brilliant Image. And that's where you can see I love excellent and brilliant, two of my key words. And the whole concept was, it's both smart, meaning using intelligence, and attractive. It's the kind of thing you'd really want. And so we produce graphics for clients who run presentations all the time. And the answer is, they'd say, this is really great. And no, it's brilliant.
Brilliant and excellent. All right, one final presentation excellence tip. What's your top tip in those winning those mission critical deals? What have you got?
So we call it ADAP. We have a formula for it. Comes from a historical figure. Hillel, the concept, he said, somebody asked him, how can I learn the whole Bible standing on one foot? And his answer, his competitor said, you obviously don't really care, so don't bother. I'm not going to teach you anything. He stopped and he said, don't do to other people what you don't want them to do to you. And the rest is commentary. And so it's the same idea. I said, how could I take all these things I do? And we came down to a simple equation called ADAP. ADAP is audience driven. Notice what I said. It's not about me. It's about the audience. What do they need to know? What do they need to feel? Where are they coming from? Why is this important to them? So if you really know your audience well, you can resonate with them with what they need to know. On the other hand, the second half is authentic presentations. And why authentic? Because the answer is, if you're lying like Enron did about what your value system is or anything like that, it's not going to work in the long run. It's going to fall apart. But if it's authentic and it's really who you are, then the trust comes again. Competence generates confidence. And now people know you're going to do it. And I choose, when I do presentation excellence work for people, it's purely on I have mission critical job where I have to say, I believe this is going to be great for people and I want to make it happen. And therefore I have that passion and the purpose, and it works. So that's the equation. And it's got nothing to do with presentations. It's life. In fact, I'm just writing something about this in the last 2 days. It's all about how you present the information, whether it's your employees, whether it's your customers, whether it's your staff internally. Do you know where they're coming from, what they really want to hear? Are they ready to hear it? They're not always ready. How do you help them become ready? And that's a real kind of thing. And I'll end with, I'm very fortunate. I have 3 children. They're all way past where anything I'll ever achieve in my life right now, because they've just, and they're 2 of them married, and my daughter-in-law's ganged up on me one time and said, "How did you produce such great kids?" What a tough question, right? And I said, most people have children for themselves. I never did. I have children for them. They became my number one. They were my audience. They were the things that I want to make sure that they get the most out of. And that's what I focused in on for all their lives. And when I asked them sometimes questions like, how did you get to do this at this age? And they said, Dad, you introduced me to those books when I was 12 and 13. And I said, I only read it when I was 16 or 18. See, and most of the people we talk to don't get it till they're in their 20s. So that's about the limiting beliefs. We can absorb a lot more positives about people, feelings, sensations, knowledge, wisdom, than we think. And that's why this concept of midlife being a big thing is ridiculous. It's just another set of transitions we do. And don't think about retirement as anything other than a word that shouldn't be around anymore. You can retire at 32 when you sell your company for $32 million to somebody I know, and you can retire at 99 and you don't have to do either. The trick is to manage your transitions from one stage of greatness to the next.
Well, manage your stages of greatness from one transition to the next with impact, with legacy, and vision, inspiration, execution. Life's all about relationships. If we want longevity, competence generates confidence. Be your authentic self and audience driven to bring out the best in yourself and everyone around you. Honestly, I could talk to you for another 3 hours. But honestly, Jerry, may we all focus on that 200 years. This episode means a lot to me. It's very timely. It's very topical. And I appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of your group and run Leader as Coach with Vistage. And everyone, please check out the show notes to learn more about the amazing Jerry Cahn and his everything he does. He does it brilliantly and excellently. Thank you for being on the show, Jerry.
My pleasure. And I'm just going to tell everybody, if you get a chance to listen to Coach Emma something else, do it. She's a terrific host. Thank you so much. Take care. We'll see you soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.